You've changed, Rita.
What do you mean?
Ever since you started making your own money, you've grown wings. You don't listen anymore. You don't respect me.
Charles, that's not true.
It is. Buying buses without even telling me?
I told you, you said no.
Because I am your husband. Or have you forgotten that?
I didn't want my business to suffer.
No, Rita. You didn't want to listen. Now you feel like you don't need me anymore.
I never stopped needing you.
Then start acting like it. If you still want to continue that business, man.
Charles and Rita Obi had been married for 6 years when everything started to fall apart. They lived in Abuja, in a rented flat in Gwarin-A, 3 bedrooms, a small compound, a generator that only came on when NEPA took light, and a landlord named Alhaji who knocked on the first of every month like the world would end if he didn't. Charles was 36 years old. He worked as a project supervisor at a construction company. He was tall, good-looking, and the kind of man who always had something to say. He could walk into any room and within 10 minutes, everyone would be listening to him. He was funny, he was charming, he was smart. But he was also, underneath all of that, deeply afraid. Nobody knew that yet, not even Charles himself. Rita was 33. She was quieter than her husband, calmer, the kind of woman who thought before she spoke and meant everything she said. She had a diploma in catering and events management, and a dream she had carried since she was a young girl, watching her mother cook at family gatherings and seeing how food brought people together. When they moved to Abuja after the wedding, Rita started a small catering business from their kitchen. She called it Rita's Kitchen and Events. She printed small flyers, shared them at church, and waited. Charles told his friends, "My wife is just doing small catering from the house, to keep herself busy." Small catering. Keep herself busy. Those words would come back to haunt him. They had 2 children. Tobena, who everyone called Toby, was 7 years old and already his father's copy. Loud, dramatic, always performing. And Adaize, who was 5, was her mother's daughter. Quiet, sharp, watching everything and saying very little. Life was not perfect, but it was manageable until Rita's business started to grow. The growth did not happen overnight. It started slowly. 1 customer became 5, 5 became 20. Church people told their family members told their neighbors told their colleagues. Before long, Rita was handling full events, birthday parties, naming ceremonies, small weddings. She was waking up at 4 in the morning to cook and coming back in the evening tired but alive in a way that Charles had never quite seen in her before. She hired 2 girls to help her, Blessing and Sandra. She created an Instagram page that people started following. She got business cards printed. One evening, she came home and sat across from Charles at the dinner table with a notebook in her hand. "Charles, I want to talk to you about something." He looked up from his phone. "What?" "The business is growing. I'm getting more bookings than Blessing and Sandra and I can handle alone. I need to rent a small kitchen space, somewhere I can cook bigger quantities, and I need a vehicle. A small one, fairly used. I've seen one for a good price." "Charles," he leaned back, "do you know how much fuel a bus drinks? Maintenance, insurance? These are not small things. I've calculated everything. And where is this money coming from?" "From the business. I've been saving." "The business is still small, Rita. You are talking about buying a bus like the business is already ShopRite?" He shook his head. "Not now. Let the business grow more first, then we can talk about vehicles. But if I don't get a vehicle, I keep spending money on taxis and hiring trucks for every event. That money is wasting every single time." I said not now. His voice was firm. "I am your husband. I have given you my answer. Not everything has to be done today." Rita closed her notebook. "Okay," she said quietly. She did not argue. She simply closed the notebook and continued eating her food. But inside her head, she was already doing different calculations. The kind a woman does when she starts to notice that her husband's no has very little to do with the business and very much to do with something else entirely. 3 weeks later, a taxi driver almost ruined everything. Rita had a big event, a 40th birthday party for a woman in Maitama, 250 guests, full menu, the biggest job she had landed since starting the business. She had been preparing for a whole week. She hired extra help. She woke up at 3 in the morning to start cooking. By 10 a.m., everything was loaded and ready. She had called a taxi driver she used regularly to come with his bus and help move everything to the venue. By 10:30, the man had not shown up. She called him. He picked up with a low voice. "Madam, my bus broke down yesterday." Rita stood in that compound, surrounded by coolers of food, folding tables, serving equipment, and a full catering setup for 250 people. And the driver she was counting on had none since yesterday and said nothing. She called 3 other drivers. 2 did not pick up. One said he would come in 1 hour, which was already too late. She called Charles. "Charles, please, I need your help. The driver didn't come. Can you leave the office for a moment and help me move some things?" "Rita, I'm in the middle of something serious here. I can't leave the office now." She stared at her phone. Then she sent Blessing to the roadside to find any available bus they could charter. Blessing found one after 30 minutes of running around in the sun. By the time they loaded everything and reached the venue, the event had already started. Rita had to set up and serve while guests were already seated and waiting. She managed. By the grace of God, she managed. But that day aged her in ways she could not explain. On the drive home that evening, she made a decision. She was buying that bus. She could afford it, and she was not going to ask anyone's permission. 2 days later, she went to the car dealer and purchased it, cash, drove it home herself. She pulled into the compound and parked. Charles was outside. He saw the bus. She could tell from his face that he understood immediately what had happened. "You bought it," he said. "Yes. I said not now, Rita. And I almost ruined a client's birthday because I was depending on strangers to move my business around. I needed the bus, Charles. I discussed it with you. You refused to see reason. I did not even ask you for money." That statement made Charles even more furious. "You have lost your respect completely. If you are not careful, I will shut down that business in this house. I am your husband. If you cannot listen to me, that business will stop. People always say a wife who has money can never be submissive. I used to think that was a lie, but I can see it now with my own eyes." Rita stood there and stared at him. She had wanted to surprise him with the bus. She had imagined him being proud of her. She had not imagined this. But as Charles continued talking, she understood that this was not really about the boss at all. He had stored all of this inside himself for a long time. The boss was simply the door he had chosen to open. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, so they could have peace. Then she walked into the house to rest. But she was not really sorry. She was exhausted, and she was beginning to see her husband clearly in a way that frightened her. After that incident, Rita stopped bringing business decisions to Charles. She grew quietly, she reinvested profits quietly, she planned quietly. She was not hiding things to be secretive, she was hiding things to survive. And that survival would later cost their marriage in ways neither of them expected. The business was growing fast now. Rita rented a proper kitchen space in Wuse. She hired a 3rd staff member. Her Instagram page had real followers who sent real inquiries. She was booked almost every weekend. The money was very real now. Charles still had his salary. It was not a bad salary, but the comparisons were becoming impossible to avoid. Rita's monthly income had quietly, steadily climbed past his, and then past his by a lot. Instead of being happy for his wife, envy began growing inside Charles like a weed. He had never imagined the small business Rita started from their kitchen could reach this level. He had liked the version of his wife who depended on him for everything, who needed him to make decisions, who waited for him before she moved. This version of Rita made him feel like a man. This new version
confident, booked, financially independent, made him feel like a spectator in his own marriage. He started noticing things that irritated him. The way people at church spoke to Rita now, the way they said her name with a kind of respect that had not always been there. "Rita, your catering is everywhere now. Madam Events, how is business?" He would stand right beside her during these conversations and slowly become invisible. He started going quiet on the drive home from church. He started picking fights about small things. He started checking her phone when she was in the bathroom. And then one Saturday morning, everything came to a head over pounded yam. Rita had been invited to speak at a business networking event in Abuja. Someone in her network had recommended her. She was to speak for 15 minutes about how she had grown her business from scratch. She had been looking forward to it for 2 weeks. On Friday night, she reminded Charles, "Tomorrow, I have that presentation I told you about. I'll be back before noon." Charles was watching football. "I'll prepare the children's food before I leave. What time are you going?" "By 8:30. It starts at 9. He said nothing more. Rita assumed it was fine and went to bed. The next morning, she woke up early. She bathed, got dressed, made food for the children, and was almost ready to leave when Charles walked into the kitchen at 8 o'clock and sat down heavily at the dining table. "I want to eat pounded yam," he said. Rita stopped moving. "What?" "Pounded yam. Make pounded yam before you go." Rita looked at him, then at the clock, then at him again. "Charles, it is 8 o'clock in the morning. I know what time it is. Pounded yam takes at least 45 minutes. My event starts at 9 and I need to." "So, your event is more important than your husband's food?" He crossed his arms. "I am telling you I am hungry and I want pounded yam. Is that too much to ask for my wife?" Rita stood in that kitchen and looked at this man she had married. This man she cooked for every single day. This man who never, not once in 6 years of marriage, woke up and asked for pounded yam at 8 in the morning. Not on a Sunday, not on a public holiday, not ever. Until today, the one morning she had somewhere important to be. She saw it clearly, all of it. She opened the pot on the stove. She had made jollof rice earlier that morning. There was fried chicken and coleslaw already on the counter. "There is jollof rice, fried chicken, and coleslaw on the counter," she said. "I will make pounded yam when I come back." "Charles, I will make it when I come back." She kept her voice very calm. "The children are fed. Your food is on the counter. I will be home before noon." She kissed Adeze on the forehead, told Toby to behave, picked her bag, and walked out. She felt Charles's eyes on her back all the way to the gate. She came back at 11:30.
The presentation had gone very well. People had clapped. 3 women had exchanged numbers with her afterward and asked her for advice on growing their own businesses. She had walked out of that hall feeling light. She came through the front door still carrying that feeling. Charles was in the parlor. He did not look up when she walked in. She greeted him. He gave a short, flat reply. She went to change her clothes, came back, and went straight to the kitchen to start the pounded yam she had promised. She was at the mortar when he appeared in the kitchen doorway and sat down at the kitchen table. "So, how did it go?" His voice had a particular tone that she already knew. "It went well. People were really engaged. I think I'll even get a few new clients from Good for you." He leaned back in the chair. "I have been thinking, Sha." She kept pounding. "About what?" "About you. About the way you have been carrying yourself lately." He paused. "Rita, honestly, I don't think you are behaving like a Christian wife." The pounding stopped. She turned around slowly. "What did you say?" "I said you are not behaving like a Christian wife. You left this house this morning without making your husband's food. You buy things without telling me. You make big decisions without consulting me. You are always on your phone, always running somewhere." He shook his head. "The Bible says a wife should submit to her husband. When did you stop doing that?" Rita stood at that mortar and felt many things at once. Anger, yes, but more than anger, a deep, heavy tiredness. Because she knew exactly what was happening. He had run out of practical complaints and had now decided to bring God into it.
Charles, she said, her voice steady, I cook your food every day. I take care of your children. I contribute to this home financially. I have never disrespected you publicly, never embarrassed you, never raised my voice at you outside this house. I went to a business event for 2 hours this morning. She looked at him directly. Which part of that is unchristian? You left without making my food. There was food on the counter. I wanted pounded yam. Then you should have told me the night before. Her voice rose. You asked me at 8 in the morning, 1 hour before my event, Charles, on purpose. You wanted me to miss it. Every time something good is about to happen for this business, you find a way to stand in front of it. She turned back to the mortar. Don't bring the Bible into this. This has nothing to do with Christianity. This is about the fact that your wife is succeeding and you cannot stand it. The kitchen went completely silent. Charles stood up from the chair. So because you have money now, you talk to me anyhow. You think because you have your own income, you can disrespect me in my own house? I am not disrespecting you. You are looking down on me. I am your husband, Rita, the man of this house. And every single day, this business of yours makes me feel like nothing here, like I am just somebody that is occupying space. His voice was shaking. Do you know what my colleagues are saying? Do you know what people at church are saying? That Rita has surpassed her husband, that Charles is now managing under his wife. He hit the table with his palm. I did not marry you to be managed by you. Rita turned and faced him completely. I am not managing you, Charles. You are managing yourself. You are the one keeping score. I am running a business. I am not competing with you. I have never been competing with you. Her eyes were tired and honest. The pounded yam this morning, the Christian wife speech, checking my phone last week, the silence every time someone greets me at church. Charles, you are behaving like a man who wants his wife to fail, and I'm asking you straight, do you want me to fail? He did not answer. That silence answered for him. Rita turned back to the mortar and continued pounding. Charles walked out of the kitchen without another word.
After that day, the house became a cold place. The fan still worked. Meals were still cooked. The children still ran around making noise. But between Charles and Rita, there was a coldness that had nothing to do with temperature. That night, alone in the bedroom while Charles sat in the parlor, Rita sat on the edge of the bed and thought hard. She was not a woman who gave up easily, but she was also not a woman who would suffer in silence forever. She had been patient, she had been humble, she had apologized for things that were not her fault just to keep peace. She had dimmed herself in her own home to protect her husband's feelings. And yet, here they were. She said quietly to herself, if Charles continued like this, she would have no choice but to quietly get her own place, walk away from this marriage, and live her life in peace. His jealousy was beginning to be too much. She loved him, but she also loved herself. And a woman who loves herself has a limit. She lay down that night with that thought sitting heavy on her chest. She did not sleep well. The next morning, Charles went to work carrying everything he had not said the night before. By 11 o'clock, he had not done a single useful thing. He was still thinking about Rita, about the hotel contract, about 400,000 naira every month, about the look on her face when she asked him, do you want me to fail? And he had said nothing. His colleague Robert walked past his desk and stopped. Charles, you look like a man who did not sleep. Robert was 41, calm, steady, married for 12 years. Charles respected him more than most people. Sit down, Charles said. Robert sat. How would you feel, Charles said, if your wife became richer than you? Robert did not even blink. My wife is not my competitor. She is my helpmeet. If she becomes richer, the money comes into our home. Our children eat from it. Our future is built from it, he shrugged. I would feel like my family is doing well. It's not that simple. Why not? Because people will talk. You become the man living under his wife. Robert looked at him carefully. Is this about Rita? Charles was quiet for a moment. She signed a hotel contract, 400,000 naira every month, on top of everything else she is already making.
He shook his head. I'm beginning to feel like she won't need me anymore, like she will start to see me as less. Has she done anything at all to make you feel that way? Silence. Then where is this coming from, Charles? I know how these things go, Robert. A woman gets money, gets confidence, she stops submitting, starts feeling like she knows better than everyone. Has Rita done any of that? Charles rubbed his face. Not yet, but nothing. Robert's voice was firm but calm. You are punishing your wife today for something she has not done and may never do. And while you are busy being afraid of something you invented, you are making her real life harder. He stood up. A woman who is succeeding and whose husband stands behind her, that woman boasts about her husband everywhere she goes. But a woman whose husband keeps blocking her and making her feel guilty. He shook his head. The very thing you are afraid of, Charles, you are the one creating it with your own hands. He went back to his desk. Charles sat alone. He turned everything over in his mind. The hotel contract, the boss, the pounded yam, the question Rita had asked him that he could not answer. Do you want me to fail? He sat with that question for a long time, and slowly, like a man waking up from a bad dream, he began to see the full picture of what he had been doing. Despite everything Robert said, Charles did not change overnight. He tried, but trying and actually changing are two different things, and his ego was not ready to fully let go. Then something happened that forced the matter. A contract landed on his desk. A real one, the kind he had been chasing for years. A government-linked construction project, solid and legitimate, the kind of job that could change the direction of his career. His company selected him to lead the execution. He needed 5 million naira as working capital to mobilize the project. His company would refund everything once work began, but the money had to come first. He checked his account. 1,200,000 naira. He called Robert. I need 5 million. I'm thinking of taking a bank loan. Why not ask Rita? Robert said immediately. He laughed, not a happy laugh. Robert, I know the business is doing well, but 5 million. She doesn't have that kind of money. You know how women spend. Every profit she makes, she's buying something. New wigs, redecorating the kitchen space, always something. I can't go to her with this. Have you checked her account? I don't need to check her account. Charles, go home, ask your wife.
Charles went home that evening, half convinced he was wasting his time.
After dinner, when the children were in bed, he sat across from Rita and explained everything. The contract, the opportunity, what it could mean for his career. Then he got to the number. I need 5 million naira to kick it off. The company refunds everything once we mobilize, but I have to bring the capital first. Rita listened to every word without interrupting. When he finished, she asked just 2 questions, the project timeline and when he needed the money. He answered. She picked up her phone and opened her banking app. She turned the screen to face him. Charles looked at the balance. 11,400,000 naira. He looked at his wife. He looked at the screen again. Rita, his voice came out as almost a whisper.
You always say I spend everything on wigs and irrelevant things, she said quietly. I overheard you telling Robert that over the phone, Charles. You always say I spend everything on wigs and irrelevant things, she said quietly. I overheard you telling Robert that over the phone, Charles.
He closed his eyes. There was nothing to say. No explanation that would cover it. He had sat with his colleague and reduced his wife, this woman who had been quietly building something extraordinary, to a woman who wasted money on her. Rita, she was already on her phone. His account notification arrived 40 seconds later. 5 million naira, transferred. Charles sat at that dining table and could not speak for a long time. When he finally found his voice, it was the quietest she had ever heard him from. Why, he said, after everything I have said and done, why do you just... Because you are my husband, she said simply, And that contract is going to feed this family, same as my business feeds this family, same as everything goes to the same place in the end. She looked at him. There is no your money and my money in this house, Charles. I have always known that. I was just waiting for you to know it too. He pressed both hands over his face. He sat like that for a while. When he looked up, his eyes were red. Rita, I need to talk to you. She looked at him, really looked at him. Something in his face was different tonight. The hardness that had lived there for months was gone. I have been wrong. Not about one or two things, about everything. From the beginning. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. I am jealous of you. I know that now. I have been jealous of your business, your success, the way people talk about you. And instead of dealing with that jealousy honestly, I took it out on you. The boss, the pounded yam, the Christian wife talk, blocking your ideas, checking your phone. He shook his head. I have been a terrible husband, Rita, and you have been nothing but a good wife. Rita sat very still. I was afraid, he continued, afraid that if you became too big, too successful, too independent, you would stop needing me, that you would look at me one day and see someone who is not enough. And instead of telling you that, I tried to keep you small so I could continue feeling big. He looked at her. I know how that sounds. I am ashamed of it. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Rita spoke. Charles. She looked down at her hands, then back at him. I need to tell you something too. He waited. I was thinking about leaving. She said it plainly, without drama. Not because I stopped loving you, but because I was exhausted. I was doing everything right. Cooking, caring for the children, supporting this home, remaining humble, and still coming home every evening to a man who resented me for working hard. I started to ask myself how much longer I could do it. Charles stared at her. You were going to leave? He said honestly, a woman can only take so much before she starts protecting herself. He sat with that, the weight of it, the realness of how close things had come without him seeing it. You didn't, he said. I didn't, she agreed. Because somewhere underneath all your jealousy and your ego and your pounded yam at 8 in the morning, a small, tired smile crossed her face. I could still see the man I married. I just needed him to come back. Charles reached across the table. She looked at his hand. Then she placed hers in it. I'm not going anywhere, she said, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that we are a team from today. That my success is your success and your success is mine. That if something is bothering you, you say it out loud instead of turning it into pounded yam requests and silent treatments. Despite everything, he almost smiled at that. I promise, he said. And Charles, yes, I will always remain your wife. Not because I have no choice, because I choose to. I will cook your food, respect you, honor you, not because I am afraid of you or because you are richer than me, but because that is who I am. She squeezed his hand. But I need you to let me be who I am in every area, including this business. I know that now. They sat at that table for a long time, not talking, just sitting together in a house that had been cold for too long and was only now beginning to warm again.
They went for counseling the following month. Charles sat in that office and admitted things he had never said out loud, about how he grew up watching his father control everything, about how he had always believed that a man who earns less than his wife has somehow failed, about how the fear of being irrelevant had turned him into someone he did not want to be. Rita sat in that same office and admitted her own things, that she had started making decisions alone, not just out of necessity, but because she had stopped trusting Charles with the real picture, that she had learned to celebrate quietly and plan quietly and hide quietly, and in doing so had pushed her husband further and further outside their own family story. They were not bad people. They were two people who had stopped talking honestly. And the moment they started again, everything began to change. Charles joined the business 6 months later. Head of operations, Obi's Kitchen and Events. They changed the name together,
both of them there when the new sign went up. He brought in his project management skills to handle supplier relationships, logistics, and scheduling. He reduced their supply costs, streamlined their event operations, and brought in 3 new vendor contacts that took the business to a level Rita had not been able to reach alone. His construction salary stayed, his career continued, but something had been added to the man. A settledness, a peace that comes when a person stops fighting something they should have been celebrating all along. One Saturday morning, Rita walked into the kitchen and found Charles already at the stove. Eggs frying, bread on the counter, tea almost ready. Toby at the table eating, Adeza beside him reading. Rita stood in the doorway. "You're up early," she said. "We have a supplier meeting at 10. He didn't turn around. Eat first." She sat down. He set a cup of tea in front of her and sat across from her. "Rita." She looked up. "I am proud of you." He said it plainly. On an ordinary Saturday morning with eggs on the stove and children at the table. No big moment, no drama, just a man saying a true thing. "I have been proud of you for a long time. I just did not know how to show it without feeling like I was losing something. Now I know I was never losing anything." He met her eyes. "I was actually gaining everything. I just couldn't see it." Rita wrapped both hands around her teacup. She did not make a big thing of it. She just looked at her husband and nodded. "Thank you, Charles," she said, and she drank her tea. This story is for every home where a woman started winning and her husband started withdrawing. For every man who has sat across from his wife and felt her success as a personal insult. For every husband who asked for pounded yam at 8 in the morning when he knew very well it was not about the food. Charles was not a monster. He was a man who had been taught by everything around him that his value lived in one place, in being the provider, the decision maker, the biggest name in the room. And when Rita started building something that challenged all of that, he panicked. Panic in a man who has never examined himself does not look like fear. It looks like control. It looks like not now. It looks like you're not behaving like a Christian wife. It looks like silence on the drive home from church and checking her phone when she's in the bathroom. But here is what Charles eventually learned and what every man in his position needs to hear. Your wife's success is not your failure. It was never your failure. She is not building a case against you. She is building a life for both of you. And if you spend your years standing in her way, one day you will look up and realize that the woman who once asked for your blessing now no longer needs to. Not because she stopped loving you, but because you taught her that loving you came at too high a cost. Rita almost left. Let that sit with you. A woman who cooked every day, cared for the children, contributed to the home, remained humble, and never once embarrassed her husband in public. She sat on that bed and thought about walking away, not because she was a bad wife, because even a good wife has a limit. The only reason she stayed was because Charles finally came home. The real Charles, the one she had married. If you are a Charles, and you know if you are, stop waiting for your wife to shrink. Grow. Grow beside her. Grow because of her. Because a man who can stand next to a thriving woman and say, "That is my wife, and I am proud of her," that man is not small. That man is exactly the kind of man she prayed for when she said yes. Be that man.
If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to African Tales by Insena. More emotional and touching stories are coming your way. Bye!